always a 30-second lag. Oh, private chat, you wrote me something. Oh. Okay, guys, welcome to my regular Wednesday night live streams at 8:30 p.m. I am very excited to have an amazing guest. He's not as well known as E. Michael Jones, but the conversation will be one of high substance and quality, which is why I bring people on my show for high quality conversations. Thank you very much, Stephen Roberts, for coming on my program today. How are you?
My pleasure. I'm excellent, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm really good. I'm really happy. Got. You know, I'm sort of accidentally treating you as if you're the Dusty Bogan. Just sort of.
Where's the
nice
scotch?
Somewhere there. I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't really drink alcohol. Not a whole lot. So, the original. So we're going to talk about two very serious topics today. One is the double standards and hypocrisy in the church, and the other is the double standard and hypocrisy in the movement, which I have become completely disillusioned by and don't even give a shit about anymore. But we're going to begin by launching your channel. Yay!
Correct. It's pretty exciting. It's my first channel. I've been sort of growing it behind the scenes. So you've probably seen the chats going around. I've got a Telegram page now, an Instagram. So I've been growing it through that, and then my first video is going to be launched this Saturday. I'm not sure on the time yet, but I can chuck an update either in your chat or on my channel itself. So I'm guessing around about lunchtime, but I'll let you guys know closer.
Fair enough. Well, my chat gets a lot of action. But the conversations are predominantly political and theological and philosophical. But I throw a bit of fashion in there because I throw in a bit of the Kardashians. I throw in a bit of, Kristen Cavallari in there. So it really is a pretty great chat to belong to. We're referring guys right now to Telegram. So tell everyone what your channel will be about. I think it's kind of obvious by looking at you and the amazing clothes you're wearing, what it's about. But give everyone an indication as to why you're starting this channel, what the purpose is, and what inspired it.
So I've been involved in corporate fashion for over 10 years now, working in our corporate spaces and studying it as a hobby in my part-time. And I've helped a lot of guys privately, sort of freelance, doing some consulting. So I've helped guys reinvent their style from all ages, whether it's young to, guys in their 40s and 50s that, maybe they've gone through a divorce or they've had something change in their life and they want to reinvent themselves and update their style and who they are. And I've done that on the side. It's been very successful. And with this whole coronavirus lockdown, the entire world's pretty much at home looking at YouTube. And obviously I can no longer do that because we're in lockdown, all the stores are closed. So I thought now's the opportunity to share my knowledge, get out to the world for free. And I think it's a necessary duty that I have to share what I know. So it's not just fashion, it's anything to do with obviously clothes, but men's grooming, hair loss for guys, even a bit of health, so like men's health. It's basically image consulting to a certain extent with a little bit extra thrown in. So I focus mostly on a budget. So I work with all budgets. You don't have to be a millionaire to look like one is my motto. And so I try and keep that as a point of reference because obviously not everyone can afford $1,000 suits and that's not even what I wear. So I try and make the most of what guys already have. And, I'm not a big fan of brand names and big labels. I think that it's more about how your clothes fit, as opposed to wearing a big shiny brand name that's expensive. To me, that's a cheap way of trying to look good. So I try and teach the basics of fashion, and I try and keep it timeless. So I specialize in traditional fashion, as well as business casual, your more corporate, and even a little bit of like your black tie or white tie. So it's a pretty big range.
I think that's fantastic. I think a lot of men in this country, and a lot of men in general that I know in the past and at present need your services. So once Australia returns to whatever the new normal is going to be, because I'm sure like the proximity will be wavered at some stage. It would be fantastic to see your channel in action, and I can't wait. Now, I promised someone in the chats
Absolutely.
that I would do this, and I didn't do it at the start, but I wanted to wait until he was on. So this is a really silly moment for me, but I'm just going to do it. Steal. Okay, cool. It's all about steel.
A breath in there.
Everyone loves Steel Archer. Well, I like to keep my promises if they're not too ridiculous. But
Nice.
I think it's fantastic that you're going to start a channel. I think it's interesting that you've worked in fashion for as long as you have. A lot of people don't know I have as well, actually. But I don't really care about fashion anymore at all. But I think we should collaborate one day. It'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be exciting.
How fun would that be?
I think it's always great to have a girl's opinion for guys. So
don't fall off your seat with
awesome.
excitement. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Look,
you may have this amazing knowledge on fashion, and you may have 10 years experience. And I agree with you, by the way, regarding the stupidity of people who are only about labels. I think it's great to buy a label here and there if it's a staple item, but I really don't think if everything you're buying is I think that's just, what's the word? Pretentious. It's pretentious. I find it pretentious. But we're here to talk about double standards today. Double standards in the church, and you and I are both Christian. So this is, I think, extremely, some people don't like it when people do this. People go, you don't attack the right. You don't attack this. You don't attack that. I disagree with that notion. I mean, I disagree with that in terms of specific people. I think paying something out as a whole, like the movement, like one of the videos that I did, I think that's okay because it's general. So what subject did you want to start with today? And also, obviously, inform the audience as to why it is that I have you on my channel, because they're going to be like, well, how does he know politics? Like, yeah.
So I've been involved
tell them about yourself
politics.
In that regard.
I've been involved in politics for about 5 or 6 years now. And it's slowly gotten deeper over time. As well as that, I've also been involved in many different churches as well. Anything from Catholic to Pentecostal, your Hillsongs, and currently I'm at a Orthodox church. So I don't particularly follow one denomination. I don't think that one denomination is necessarily correct. I think you can sort of learn something from all of them. So I've got a lot of informal experience being within chat groups and within churches. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
That is good. So we're going to start with, I'm going to look at the document that I have here that I copied and pasted. The issues on the right. Okay, so these are the things we're going to talk about. You and I are both, I now say I am an individualist, and I am a right-leaning Christian individualist. This is, I think, a better title for me. People say I don't like labels. I do like labels, so I like to find the words that match my mentality and of how to identify. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the issues on the right, the things that you've noticed, the things I've noticed. Now, the first bullet point here says infighting between groups. Go for it.
So you see it a lot on both sides, obviously the left or the right, but
of course,
it is a major factor within the right because it is one thing that can let us down. So you look at conservatives and libertarians, I think it's sort of seen that they're supposed to be at odds, when in reality there can be a lot of shared values there. Some people will disagree, but I think if more people on the right within different groups actually spoke and, you know, have an opportunity, we'd find out there's a lot more in common that we share than you might think. And I think that if we do that, it's actually going to help the right in terms of progressing and not stumbling over themselves, so to speak.
Yeah, you do you wish to elaborate a little bit more than that? I see
Yeah,
Dia has
so
gone with drunken Dean background. How good is that? I love my background.
so I mean, look, you see it within chat groups all the time. I mean, if you're on the right, we have very
Yes.
similar principles. No one's ever going to agree. So no one, as much as we use labels, like you said, labels are used to describe yourself, but it's an easy way to describe yourself. I don't think anyone fits into a label. And if they do, if someone is just 100% conservative or 100% libertarian, I think they haven't really thought for themselves on the issue, because no one's ever going to, we all have different life experiences. We all have something that we can contribute. And to assume that you can just fit someone into a box, I think that's actually the issue, because as soon as
That
someone
is the
says
issue.
I'm conservative or I'm libertarian, you automatically have this image and this persona that that person is, when in reality they could have a totally different opinion than what you expect. I think that if us on the right, if we can explore that more, it would actually help our cause in the long run.
It's
I
the
think that's the
puritanicalism.
key.
Would you say that?
Yeah,
That it's a puritanicalism. It's like, oh, that person's interviewing a libertarian. Oh, they must be anti-Christian. They must be this. 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 It's like, well, wait until watch this person interview this other person and see if they are anti-Christian. See if they do hate. If they do want abortion. See, like, it's a puritanicalism. Like, I'm not like that, and I'm set in my ways. So because I'm set in my ways and I'm right, this has to be the equation. And it's like there's no. It's like they malfunction. It's like it's like Sheldon, how he malfunctions. It's like,
yeah,
no, like people are
does not
layered,
compute.
and ideologies are also layered.
Absolutely, and that's just people in general.
Mm.
And that's a beautiful thing, because
Oh yes.
we can learn from each other. And I think things can get quite hostile in politics in general, and not one
Hmm.
side in particular. It's just across the board, politics gets nasty, um,
Mm.
because it's a very passionate opinion that people have in politics. But if you actually open your mind a little bit more, it can be actually quite educational, and it can really sort of change your view on the world. And at the end of the day, if you're so strong about your opinion, well, hearing a different one shouldn't really affect your opinion. You can just dismiss that as, well, that's incorrect, and prove that it's incorrect. But I think a lot of people are too scared to hear an opposing view, or to even give someone a chance to disagree with them. And I think disagreeing is actually one of the best things you can do, especially if you can come out of the disagreement with a new perspective on life, and you learn something new. And if you go through your whole life doing that, constantly learning from other people, that's how knowledge grows. Ultimately, the planet is a hive mind of information, and to think you know it all is just ignorant. It's what teenagers think. But as you get older, you realize that it's really important to actually tap into that hive mind and learn from it. And so I see that as being a key to not just politics, but anything in life. You can always learn something new.
Exactly. Don't you find that when if you as a human being, and you and I happen to belong to the right-leaning side of politics, not the left-leaning side. It'd probably be far worse if we were on the left. So what we're experiencing is probably not even that bad. But the hive mentality that does exist on the right, that doesn't get mentioned out loud very much, is extremely. I don't know what the word is. I don't know if the word is toxic, but it's like they're very thick. And if you stray a little bit and you say something like. For example, like the chats that you and I have been having in my chat group on Telegram, oftentimes there's a lot of stubbornness in there. It's like one cannot acknowledge or even concede a little bit and say, "Oh yeah, I see your point." That doesn't happen.
It
Happens with me.
it gets
I do it. I constantly say, yeah, I didn't realize that. People told me that my 5G video was wrong. And I'm like, no one gave me any evidence to really prove that. But, I was like, well, I'm going to have to change the title. I changed the title to say possible illustrations of 5G dangers, because no one actually proved to me with video evidence or anything that it was wrong. But I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong. I'm happy to alter things. Other people are not. Do you find that?
Yeah, it gets very tribal, and we've moved out of tribes. We live in a society now which is much larger, and I think we're still, as much as we like to think that we're a superior race and we're all knowing in some ways, and we've come so far, I think we're still adapting to the modern world, which is a lot more closed than it used to be. I mean, you used to spend a year of your life to go on a holiday overseas. Now you can do it in a day. So that sort of put things in perspective. And not only that, with the internet, now you can get an opinion on the other side of the world in seconds, less than seconds. It's instant. So the world's much smaller, and in some ways, it can be a lot more daunting for people, I think.
Yeah,
and it's just a
this
part
is
of human
absolutely
nature.
accurate. I love this comment. Sorry. This is an amazing comment. You are so right, PC Leaks. Hashtag FUCK the movement. But anyway.
Flop the movement. Yep. We'll just
right.
censor it at
that. Yeah. All right. So the second bullet point that you've given me here is false prophets.
So yeah, I mean,
I can't elaborate too much on this, but I would love you could just. I mean, people who know me personally already know what I think about this, but you go.
Okay. So without naming names, I think there's a lot of people in the conservative side of politics. You see on both sides, but there is a lot who people look up to and aspire to, that actually have a lot of good values they promote, but behind closed doors and behind the scenes, they lack the integrity, and they're not actually living up to those values. And
Absolutely
I think that is
not.
a major threat to the right, because if that gets called out by political opponents, that's a major fault, and that's something that the right consistently calls the left out about. We're so quick to jump on it, and it goes both ways. So I think some people that have quite a large platform don't necessarily have the values to back it up. I think that can be a big issue.
Yeah, and it's with more than it's with several people, and it happens at large. Like I met Lauren Southern. I loved meeting her. I thought it was fabulous. And then when Mark Collett did it, this is when I first became aware of him. This was about a year and a half ago that I became aware of Mark Collett, and he did sort of an expose video on Lauren Southern and everything that was going on between her, Kaylin, is that his name? Kaylin, and
Yes.
and all these behind the scenes things. I'm like, okay, so she's not as, I mean, I think she's a good girl. I don't have anything against Lauren Southern, but the picture painted publicly is not the same picture painted privately. And I think it's the same with many of these people that we've elevated to some sort of right-wing godhood status. And it's just disappointing, because who are we supposed to look up to? But obviously you and I know who to look up to, because his name is Christ. But it doesn't hurt to have human examples as well, role models. But yes, Kaylin Robertson, thank you, Australian Protectionist Party.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah.
Yeah, it is quite it is quite a letdown, but that's also
It is a letdown.
Human nature to a certain extent. The issue is the higher you put someone in leadership, the more integrity they need to have, because they're not just about themselves now, they're leading others. And this actually kind of ties into our next topic, but when you have a leader that you find out isn't who they claim to be, or isn't living by the values they put out there, it makes you doubt those values, and it makes you actually rebel against them in some cases. And I think that, you know, a lot of people that are leaving the right could be due to that. It's just what happens. It's psychology. You're not going to support something that no one believes in and actually practices themselves. So I see that as a major issue as well. Dusty Bogan.
Dusty
Gotta look at Dusty
Bogan is
Bogan.
actually authentic. He's authentic,
Very.
not a false god, kind in his criticisms. It doesn't just ram you with a bulldozer like, you know, a raving trollish lunatic. He's actually a very kind person. We love you, Dusty.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at his chats with Antifa, and he's gone from having an enemy that can't stand him to either converting them or they love him now. That's a classic example.
They do. They like.
And you know,
Yeah.
Dusty isn't your typical politician. He's
No.
he's very
He's a fun-loving Aussie bloke.
yeah, he's the Dusty Bogan. He is who he is, and that's integrity. You know, you don't need to be an uptight, you know, perfectly spoken person for people to listen. You know, we've seen that in politics for years, and it lets you down. People love someone that's genuine, and
if
I
he's
think
wrong
that
about
is the key.
And if he's wrong about something, he admits it as well. The way I think you, the way I think I do. And if he wants to hand out criticism, he doesn't do it by calling a person, you know, an effing moron or stupid. Like there's a way to go about doing that without coming across. I mean, I've been getting so many private messages about certain people who are just unnecessarily nasty. And I appreciate people seeing like how those people come off, how they come across, because it's just not a good look. And I'm just responding kindly. And that's just my intent is to remain as Christ-like as I can, because I sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I want to be like F you, but I don't, because that's not the way to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's that old saying, you kill more flies with honey than a swatter, and it's pretty true. You know, you're actually better in the long run to be kind to your enemy and to respect them, because there's no chance you'll ever be able to change their mind if you're not. So I think that's a really good example by Dusty, and that's something we could all learn from, myself included. You know, sometimes emotions get the best of you, and it's something that's hard to control, but you've got a classic example here.
Exactly right. Let's see what's in the next part of our bullet points. People who say one thing and do another. Do you think we kind of covered that in the false prophets, or did you want to maybe? Do you have an example? Like, is Gavin McGuinness an example? Is Milo Yiannopoulos an example of that? Avi, I don't know.
I mean, look, you know, Gavin has this this image that, and I actually quite like Gavin. He has this image that he's a Catholic and a conservative, but in some ways he doesn't act like a conservative or a Catholic, and it's in some ways good, but also it's I mean, I think he's the first to admit that he's not your traditional Catholic, you know, or even a conservative. He calls himself a punk conservative.
Didn't he put something up his ass, and people have used that one thing he put up his ass as a reason to somehow certify that doesn't make him because like I'm a human being who's made mistakes. I haven't shoved anything up my ass, and I never will. But
yeah, look, that's probably. I hope he regrets that, because look, I mean, he's definitely, you know, an out there guy, and that's been his whole stick to his show. So. You know, look, in some ways it's though. Absolutely, right? Because he gets people that he necessarily wouldn't with traditional conservatism. It's sort of similar to Jordan Peterson, who, you know, he doesn't push Christianity, but he's opened a lot of doors for people by putting out there to study the Bible and the importance of it, because it's, you know, a part of history. So I think we covered, you know, a fair bit of that in the last topic, but it's definitely out there. And like I said, I think it definitely impacts the larger movement, if you want to call it, or the the right in general. It can impact that image.
It can. All right. Well, let's move on to the next topic then, which was a lack of leadership. There are no real leaders, though. That's the thing. Where we're looking for in my video where I said, "What the hell's the movement?" Because I keep evolving politically. I'm still always going to be a Christian, but I'll never be completely libertarian because I can't. I can't agree with that way of thinking. I'm certainly a light libertarian, which I've said many times in the past. But who are the leaders? Like, I don't know where they are. I think someone like James Fox Higgins, the way he's just respected. And I think it's because he's a hard ass in his live chats as well. He doesn't allow people to be dicks in his live chats. I appreciate his tight ship on that. But who are the leaders? I don't know who they are. Do you know who they are? Is the Dusty Bogan the leader? Like, who is the leader? Is it one of the heads of the Proud Boys? Is it it's not me. I don't want to be a leader at all. I just want to be a commentator and have open discussions with different people. And even then I get in trouble. Like, if I had a porn star on my show, I would cop flack from people on the right for that. Whereas people who are a little bit more libertarian minded would be like, oh, she's having a conversation to get their perspective. So why do you think we are lacking such leaders? And is it because like it's full of man children, or how would you tell me what you think or what your diagnosis on that particular bullet point is?
I think there is a certain level of man children. Again, I won't
Sorry,
name names, but there definitely is a certain level of man children out there. But as well as that, I think that it's because we're so fractured. I think that plays a big role as well, because it's very difficult to be a leader in a business or any sort of setting. We all know in politics, with leadership or even with being a public figure, there's a lot of scrutiny and there's a lot of pressure you're under. Yeah. And that was a funny comment.
It made me laugh.
So, I think when you combine the pressure that's already on leadership in general with an already fractured audience and group, it makes it very difficult, because who's going to decide and agree on who's the correct leader in the first place?
Exactly.
I mean, you look at Scott Morrison, who I think he's doing a great job, but even he still gets comments and hatred, mostly from the left, but there's a lot from the right as well.
Because he's doing a great job with some things and a shitty job with other things. Oh my God, look at the Dusty Bogan Road.
Ben's
I totally go there with you, but I think you're too young.
I'm 28. I think I don't know. I think I'm in Queensland. You're
I'm 5 years
down
older
in Victoria.
than you. I'm 5 years older than you.
There you go. Well, the beard does add a bit of age to me, but
you look older than me, and I look younger than you, and I often get told how much of a youthful exuberance I have, because people always think I'm in my 20s. So hey, it could work. No, kidding. Sorry, keep going. Back to topic.
I had a bit of a baby face, that's for sure, before the beard. Might go back to it, but we'll see. Good old Dusty. That's why I gotta love him. He's just he's good fun.
He's a great person. His wife is very lucky.
Absolutely. I've known both him and his wife for about almost 15 years now, I think. Quite a while. We've both seen each other evolve quite a fair bit, and I'm definitely proud to say that he's a genuine bloke.
I told the Dusty Sheila when I first met you and everyone else. I told the Dusty Sheila. It keeps going. I told the Dusty Sheila. I said to the Dusty Sheila, I don't want any alcohol. She bought me 2 shots. I'm like, what are you doing? She doesn't know how to say. She's like, she's too inviting. She's very lovely. I really liked her.
Yeah, she's great.
She is. Sorry, back to topic. So we're talking
Sure.
about lack of leadership and how we are so fractured on the right. But I mean, I think the fracture exists on the left. I don't know that because I'm not there. They're certainly extremely unified publicly. But I think we're more honest. And I've been told many times, and I used to believe it, that, oh, you shouldn't, don't say anything about the right because this, because that. And I see the value in that, and it makes sense. But at the same time, it's like, well, we're honest, and that's why it shows. It's like ages ago, Sherman Burgess referenced me in a video, and so then I did sort of like another video, but I wasn't actually like against him. I've never been against Sherman Burgess. I think he's doing his thing, and that's fine. But my video was really silly, and I was like wearing a foil hat. It was like comedic. It was funny. And I remember when I was sort of up and coming and no one really knew who I was. And the left shared that video on their page, and the lefties were laughing. They thought my video was silly and funny because that's, I'm as serious as I am regarding all the topics we talk about. I am silly. Like that's part of, I think the appeal of why people watch me, because I can laugh and be silly, and I can make really, really important legends of the Catholic Church laugh and blush. Like that's part of, I think, why people watch me, because I'm endearing, or that's what I've heard people say. But who are the leaders on the right, and why are we lacking leadership? Doesn't the right have I'm just reading the comments there. Doesn't the right have the Dusty Sheila? She's so cute. Doesn't the right doesn't the right have all the answers? Like, I've watched Candace Owens, and I've watched Ben Carson, and I've watched Stephen Crowder all say the same thing. You need to be married by this age, have this at this age. And so we know the formula for success. We know the formula for a good family unit. We have the formula down. So why can't we produce good leaders? I don't get it. What do you think it is? Because we know the formula. We have good people telling us.
So I think it's a combination of things. So one thing is going back to being so fractured.
Oh, that was an accident. Yeah.
One thing is going back to being so fractured. It's hard to define a leader, and in combination with that, if you're going into a movement and you find out that people aren't who they make themselves out to be, and that they're not actually getting married and settling down, or that they're not living up to those values, then in the end, it actually pushes people away. And so I think that's why you're seeing less people actually committing to those values, because since the 80s, we've seen a decline in marriages. We've seen a decline in the West in birth rates in general. And it creates like a snowball effect, because if you grow up without parents that are married and you don't know what it's like to have that traditional happy family, so to speak, which is never 100% true, there's always things you have to go through as a couple, and there's hurdles you have to overcome. Whereas in this day and age, people are so quick to give up. One big thing that plays into it in terms of relationships and why they're failing, I think, is the birth of social media. So the world's become a lot smaller. There's now a lot more competition out there, and you see it with guys and girls. I mean, I know guys that will deliberately date someone with the anticipation of meeting someone better through them. Stepping at what's the term I'm looking for here? Upgrading. It's always about upgrading and finding someone better, when that's not going to make you happy in the end. And you see it with women. I mean, if you're on social media, if you're on Instagram, you could be with a partner and you've got 10 other guys that are messaging you constantly, telling you, how beautiful and amazing you are. And over time, relationships tend to stale. It's one thing that can happen. They don't have that same spark initially, in a lot of cases, And at that point, it's only reasonable that a girl goes, well, I'm not getting as much attention from my partner here, but I'm getting 10 different guys here that are saying that, they give me attention that I'm craving and missing. So it's a multitude of factors. I mean, you have men that are sort of dropping the ball in some sense, but you also have women that are, falling substitute to that temptation that's out there. And it's usually an emotional temptation that causes that. They're lacking something emotionally with their current partner, or with guys, they think they can find a more attractive partner next. And again, social media. I mean, if you go on Instagram, there's beautiful women everywhere that you're showered with. There's photos everywhere. So it's very easy to sort of think the grass is greener on the other side. And so I think that plays a big role, a lot more than
Yeah.
we admit.
I think you're right, and I don't know if I don't know how often you've watched me, or if you're interested in any of my content. But some time ago, I interviewed Noah Revoy. Now, Noah Revoy is actually a regular guest of our mutual friend James Fox Higgins, and James Fox Higgins told me to. Maybe have a session with the guy, and he's really, really, really intelligent. And someone wants to know who you are. Missed the intro. Can someone please tell me who Dia's guest is? This is Stephen Roberts. He is a Christian. He is a fashion guru. We promoted his channel at the very start. So that's in the description box below, guys. When will you be releasing your first video for the channel?
This Saturday. So I plan on launching it around lunchtime.
I'll promote the hell out of it.
I'll update leading up to it with a more exact time. It's still being edited right now.
Yep.
So I put a lot of effort into the production values as best as I can for myself. But I want the content to be good for my audience. So I put some effort in. Speaking of which, actually, I almost forgot. I'm breaking a big style rule today. So a very big style rule I'm breaking. I'm not wearing much from the waist up. So you've got a small amount to choose from. If anyone can guess what style rule I'm breaking, put it in the comments below, and whoever guesses it right, depending on if they're a male or female, I'll send them a prize accordingly.
Ooh, okay, guys. Did you understand? So you guys have to guess what style rule he's breaking, and then you'll get a little something something. So if someone guesses, is it the first person to guess?
Your audience is. First person to guess. First person to guess it correct.
To guess it correct. Okay, first person to guess it correct. So you can't give it to like 5 people. It's to one person. It's the first person who guesses it correctly, right?
Yes. Yep. First person to get it correct.
I also think I thought of an amazing. I thought of an amazing YouTube video for you to do.
Sure.
My friend, Senator Slayer, needs help with fashion. You could totally pimp him out.
Absolutely. I mean, my
this guy needs help with his fashion.
That isn't the right answer, but good try. If that was the answer to the competition, no. So look, I'm open for anyone. I don't care if you're used to wearing football shorts and a pair of thongs. I can work with you. So that's my whole thing.
The hell, Margaret? That doesn't even make sense. Can you see his brown Beltran shoes? You have to observe something from here to here for you to get a prize.
Nice try though. That is a good style rule, but you can see it. That's a clue. It's visible. It's out there. So it's probably a little bit sneaky because it is a bit of a lesser known style rule, but that's what I'm here for, is to share the knowledge. So by the end of the chat, by the end of this live stream, I'll say what it is, and if no one's been able to guess it, we'll see how it goes. But But there
We
is,
will
one major rule.
monitor. Oh my god! Can you see? Can you see the person who got it?
No, I can't see the comment yet, but we'll
Someone
see.
got it.
Yes, very good, very good, awesome work.
Yay, Margaret!
If you
What's
can
her
get her
prize? What does
details,
she
like,
get?
it'll be a surprise. But if you can
I'll
get her
private message
address,
you. She's my
yeah, and
best friend. I'll private
I'll mail
message
something
you her
out.
details.
I'll mail something out. Yeah, I'll work something out with Margot. But awesome work. Yep. So yeah,
She's happy.
never match the pocket square with the tie, because it looks like you just bought it in a pack. So that's a salt to everyone out there.
Oh, apparently Portfilm Corp said it first. I didn't see it. Hang on. If that's
Ooh.
true, then I don't.
We'll have to work that
double
out.
check. Oh, okay. He just wrote Hanky. Oh, okay. He did. He said it first. He did. Yeah, there it is.
Ooh. Sorry, Mark. Okay, we'll see. We'll see if we
Can you
can
do a
work something out.
female prize and a male prize?
Let's do that. Why not? Let's do that.
Because I got excited about Margaret.
Good job.
He did say first. See, I admit when I'm wrong.
Good job, Port.
Co-op.
Alrighty, that's awesome. I'm
That's awesome.
pretty impressed with the audience.
That was a good game. Look, we have 42 people watching. Are half of them your family?
Possibly. I did share it around quite a fair bit, so there could be a few watching.
Well, that's all right. Do you know what I forgot to do? I started a tradition on my channel last week when I had E. Michael Jones, and I started off my channel with Bible verses. But I forgot to do that now. But I had the Bible verse ready, so let me just find it. But in the meantime, what were we talking about? Let's get back to the. Oh, this is what he wrote. Give the prize to Margot. I just wanted the credit. Well, I definitely gave you the credit because.
Good on your Port.
That's
very
funny.
Impressed.
We were on lack of leadership. Did you want to continue on that subject matter while I find the Bible verse that I wanted to read?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something that's going to be tackled tomorrow. It's something that I think we just need to consider in the back of our minds. And, as well as that, if you want the right to succeed, you have to sort of criticize. I mean, your parents, your closest friends, they're the first ones to criticize you when you make a mistake. So I think, if we can sort of refine our values and instill them, the next generation, we might actually see some genuine, amazing conservative leaders. And I'm sure they're out there right now, but maybe they're not involved in politics. Maybe they're not, the values are there, but maybe they're just not in the space. So I think it's a matter of time. But I think that, not all, but there's definitely an issue with some of the leaders that we have in Australia today. They're on the right.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I think people like Candace Owens are super genuine, despite her militantness. There are some on the right that we can rely on, but even the ones that I really love, like I often tell people, everyone knows I love Stephen Crowder. But from what I hear, and I didn't believe them when they said it to me because I can be quite stubborn at times. People said, no, he's not everything he's cracked up to be. And then I had these lefties, or maybe he wasn't even a lefty. Maybe it was just a centrist saying he's actually not what you think. And I didn't believe it until they physically sent me the video and then I watched a few of them and I'm like, maybe he's. So I still like what he says on a public scale, but it doesn't sound like he has the integrity of what I would want. Yeah.
I think that's the key. Everyone makes mistakes. No one's perfect, and no one's going to agree on everyone's opinion. But if you're honest about who you are, I think that's more important than saying the right thing. People respect that a lot more. I think that's true leadership.
I agree. So the Bible verse I wanted to read at the start was 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 13 to 17. But we ought always to thank God for you, brothers and sisters loved by the Lord, because God chose you as first fruits, to be saved through the sanctifying work of the Spirit and through belief in the truth. He called you to this through our gospel, that you might share in the glory of our Lord Jesus Christ. So then, brothers and sisters, stand firm and hold fast to the teachings we passed on to you, whether by word of mouth or by letter. May our Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father, who loved us and by his grace gave us eternal encouragement and good hope, encourage your hearts and strengthen you in every good deed and word. How fitting is that for our next segment, actually?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really,
Absolutely.
yeah. So now we're going to talk about the hypocrisy within the Christian church, both Catholicism and Protestantism. Ooh, touching taboo
This will be
subjects.
interesting. Yeah, this will be interesting.
It will be
I
interesting because
expect
this
this
will
to
anger
be,
people.
yeah, I expect it to be quite controversial. But that's not my main intention by talking about this. Obviously, I'm Christian myself. Like I said, I think that to ignore these issues is only going to see more people leave the church. And I think to address them is honest, and I want to actually provide some ways we can actually help the issue and help the church.
Oh, of course, we're not doing this to take down Christ, and yeah, it's all about just noting our observations.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. The first bullet point is infighting between the sects, fighting between the sects. Well, I
So
do
it's sort of
that.
similar.
I know,
Absolutely.
SECTS, guys.
um, so it's sort of similar to what's going on with the right side of politics, but it's a lot worse within Christianity. So I think under Christianity comes a whole broad range of churches. You know, I know that yourself doesn't see Catholics as Christian.
I don't.
I
I don't see
do.
them as Christian. I'm one of those. Exactly. So there we go. Disagreement already. Yeah.
So I think that it's important to start with the definition of what it means to be a Christian, and that means to follow the teachings of Christ, plain and simple. There's so many ways to break down the Bible and to analyze it, but that's my broader vision of what it means to be a Christian in my mind, is to simply follow the teachings of Christ and to try and emulate Christ's values as much as you can as a human. So, for example, you see, Catholics will say that Hillsong people, or Pentecostals, won't go to heaven, that they're going to go to hell because they don't confess to priests and because they don't agree with the way that the church can almost act like a party or like a concert in some ways. They have their own vision of Christianity and Catholicism being very almost confining and restrictive, and that you almost shouldn't have fun at church because you're disrespecting God. And on the other hand, if you look at it's very true.
I agree.
Benjamin.
I agree with what Benjamin just wrote. That your definition, I don't mean that disrespectfully. Notice how nicely I package my criticism to my guest without being such a bitch. Everyone, take note. So you said that plain and simple, that the definition of of being Christian or whatever is those who follow the teachings of Christ. The Mormons follow the teaching of Christ. They are not Christian. So
But I think
maybe it would be better if you said something like
I can help
those who
refine that.
are saved and born again, and because the Mormons believe in works, the Catholics believe in works. I also just wanted to make a distinction before you continue. I do believe that there are Christians, and I do believe that Catholics can go to heaven. But I'm saying at large, the Catholic Church at large, the institution is not Christian, but certainly individual Catholics find salvation in Christ and can go to heaven. I think that distinction needs to be made there, because it's like me saying all my family's going to go to hell. So continue. What were you going to say, and how do you counter that statement?
Absolutely. So I probably should have defined that a little better.
Yeah.
One instance with the Mormons, for example, is that Jesus never taught to have multiple partners, and that can be quite prevalent in the church. So I think that it's in the broadest, it was meant to be a very loose and open term. If you wanted to define it more, I think that to be following the teachings of the Bible, to be following the teachings of Christ, and to be baptized, with an exception. I mean, if you're in a place where you can't be baptized because maybe there's no other Christians there, I think there's an exception for that. You know, you're still a Christian, but I think that those are the main three things. So being like Christ as much as possible, following the Bible, and being baptized. There's obviously a whole range. There's obviously a whole range of you know, of other things that can be thrown in there. But I think as a whole, you know, if you recognize Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and you openly claim that, I mean, you don't need to have a megaphone walk down the street, but you know, if people ask you and you openly admit to that, then that makes you a Christian, in my opinion, along with those other.
I think that's
other
a
values I stated.
better defined term. And so, why do you think there's so much infighting? I believe it. I personally believe that infighting exists based on different understandings of biblical translation. And I don't mean translation from the Greek to think. I just mean how people interpret it. For example, when I go to other churches, I'm living in New South Wales. Like, I've moved out of home. When I go to other churches, I never ever take the wine, and I never ever take the unleavened bread, because I haven't been officially welcomed into that church through baptism. They're not my official congregation yet. So when I'm visiting other churches, I never take that, because there's a Bible verse, and don't tell me where it is, but there's a Bible verse somewhere that says you are not to do that. And I have so many Christians saying, no, you can have it. You can take whatever the word is, communion, or whatever the word is that you're supposed to do, Passover, whatever it is. I'm not the best Christian because I don't know
Communion.
all the terms, but yeah, I don't do it because I don't belong to that church. I haven't been officially, certified. I don't know what the hell language I'm supposed to use, but so I don't take it. But that doesn't mean I'm not doing it in prayer and that I don't agree with it at some level. But you're not supposed to take it until you've been baptized with that particular church. That's been my understanding. And that's the tiniest bit of semantics. And that would probably that's the Brethren church because I grew up with the Brethren church, and then I moved to a more Baptist church. But my point is that I've been to all these different churches. I am non-denominational for a reason, because I have my own thoughts of things, and you might have your own thoughts on things. Like the Bible says that a woman shouldn't cut her hair, but many women cut their hair. So how do you personally, because it makes us look bad to have Christianity here and all the sects that go down that way. It looks bad. It's like we're all supposed to be one in the mind of Christ. When
Correct.
we die and we go to heaven, we're all going to be the bride of Christ, because we'll all be under the same mentality. But we are, as physical human beings, we fail at that. Why? Tell me.
I think it's quite elitist and it's quite arrogant, and that's not what Jesus was about, to sort of claim that you can, have the power to determine who's going to go to heaven or who's going to go to hell, or who's a Christian and who's not. I think in a lot of ways that's quite unchristian-like to have that sort of mindset, because who's to say that you're right? I think that's come from me going to so many different churches, because everyone sort of believes that they're right and everyone else is wrong, and it fractures Christianity. And I think that's become a big part as to why people have it's become a more left-wing world and a less Christian world in a lot of ways. So I see it as purely elitist, and it's like a competition.
It is a bit elitist.
I'm in the winning team. I'm in the right church. And it's a very worldly thing to have that sort of mindset, which I don't agree with. I mean, I think, again, if more churches could listen to each other, we could learn a lot from the different sects, and maybe we could find that there's a crossover there, and that maybe those things are the crossover that the different sects of Christianity agree with are sort of the right the right thing, so to speak, the truth, because they're sort of consistent across the board. A classic example is like, don't kill. That's pretty across the board with not just Christianity, but a lot of religions in general, and just general morals in society. But if you can do that with the teachings of Christ, I think that you can actually help people determine their own faith better. I mean, I see knowledge as power and different opinions as power, and I challenge anyone that's just growing up in just one church or one denomination to sort of look outside and question different teachings, like different churches, different denominations, because you might learn something new. You might have a whole new take on Christ that isn't negative, but it's actually positive.
Okay, that's a good answer. Pushing people. The next dot point. Guys, we'll take questions shortly. Pushing people away from the church by being overly judgmental. You sort of tied into that, but some time ago I had a friend who happened to be transgendered. Her name was Dana Pham on my channel, and I did say the week after, so the week she wasn't on my channel, I did say in the chats, I wrote in the chat, someone asked me, do you think Dana Pham's going to heaven? And I said no. And then she called me, or he, for those who want me to be specific. And but anyway, Dana called me and said, "Listen, I saw what you wrote," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I didn't know what they were talking about." And then she goes, "You said that I won't go to heaven," and I was like, "Well, I don't think you are." And she was like, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, because you've mutilated your body, you've changed it to against what God gave you." I said, like, and she goes, "But whether that's the case or not, why do you think I can't go to heaven, like, now in the body that I'm in?" And I agree. I think that just because someone does something in their past, it doesn't mean that they can't find Christ after. Like, just because, like, if someone does a huge sin, they're still able to find salvation. So I felt like I was being an elitist. I felt really judgy, and I was like, you really can't tell a person that they're not a proper Christian. I mean, you can to a degree. Like, I sit here telling people I'm a Christian, but for sure I've sinned a lot in my life, and I'm sure I've done things that God would judge as, some things I shouldn't have done. But at least I don't pretend when I'm sitting here. I tell people I'm so honest about my sins. I've told people I've done marijuana. I've told people that when I went to the Netherlands, I saw a sex show. Like, I admit things that I probably shouldn't say, but I think the honesty is a good thing as well. I mean, I shouldn't overshare either. But do you agree that that we are judgmental because of a culture that has perpetuated, or is it simply because the Bible says that we should judge righteously to help our fellow man? Because I do believe that a form of judgment is also love. I think that was said in the group chat that we were talking in, and we were both like, yeah, that's a good comment.
Absolutely. So I think there's different levels. I mean, I think you see it quite consistently in the Catholic Church, where it's almost used as an excuse that it says in the Bible to judge people. So if you look at Jesus' teachings, he was asked by the crowd, what he believed to be was the most important commandment. And he didn't give one answer, but he gave two. He said, well, the first one is to love God, as your one true Lord and Savior. And the second is to love your neighbor, just as you love yourself. So those are the two most important commandments that Jesus has taught us. Now, I think a good way to frame it is within family. So your family, for example, will tell you when you're messing up, but they won't reject you from having dinner with them. They won't reject you from, still being a family member. Whereas I know, for instance, there's cases in the Catholic Church where, girls gotten pregnant out of wedlock. And there has been so much pressure and rejection and told that they're a sinner and they've done the wrong thing, that girl has then gone and gotten an abortion, which is completely against what the Catholics are trying to achieve and what they're trying to teach.
And that's also
obviously
mentally
mistakes get made, but I think that to push people out and to, excommunicate them to a certain extent in some ways, to make them feel like an outsider, is only going to make, it's not spreading the kingdom of God, it's actually closing it off. And I think that's a very big mistake to make, because as a Christian, you're supposed to be actually spreading God's word, and to push someone out of that circle and to reject them in such a way that they never want to come back, you've actually ruined their chance of becoming a Christian. You've put a block on that. And by the same token, Catholics will say when there's much bigger issues, for example, like priests molesting children, or the sexual abuse that's going on with nuns that's just come out, which is well documented.
Oh, that's not just come. Or maybe that's come out. I didn't know that. I didn't know you were going to say that. I've known about that for years. I've always known that priests molested nuns, and a lot of babies, mysterious babies, are given up for adoption. There. What do people think these come from?
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, well, it's never been sort of come out in the mainstream, so to speak, but I've known about it for a few years as well.
Totally true.
And these same people, this is where I sort of come down to the hypocrisy. When it's a priest or when it's someone, within the Catholic Church that's respected, it's, well, they're just human, but, humans make mistakes. I think, when I point out, you'll notice all the time, when it's one of their own, and this is very tribal, it's, well, humans make mistakes, but, an instance of a girl getting pregnant outside of marriage, well, that's the ultimate sin. It's complete double standards. And it ultimately, I think, is the reason why we've seen such a push to more socialist views and people leaving the church, because of that hypocrisy. I think it's very easy to blame, Marxist thoughts or socialists or even libertarians, but when it comes down to it, the church has actually done a lot on their own part to push people away from God. Kicking a girl out for, falling pregnant outside of marriage is not only hypocritical, but it's actually affecting their lives and not achieving what you're supposed to achieve as a Christian, which is spreading the kingdom of God. It's completely a double standard. And it caused people to leave. It caused people to actually rebel, and to passionately push anti-Christian views because of one experience. And that's
exactly one
not
experience.
How a lot of that's not how a lot of Catholics are. To be honest, there's a lot of good people in the Catholic Church, but their problem is that they're also silent and they're too afraid, or they're too, whatever reason it is, they don't want to speak out about the Catholic Church and the issues within it, because it's taught that they're going against God and against, the ultimate religion. And it's the same with any denomination that has that sort of mindset. Call your leaders out and hold them accountable is the way I see it, because that's the issue.
Well, the next bullet point is about, what's the next bullet point? Let's have a look. Not living by Jesus's teachings, like loving one another, or like the Good Samaritan story. I do hear less and less stories of Christian kindness. Like, I don't like to show, I think everyone likes to show off a little bit here and there, but I don't like to show off the things I do that are charitable, the things I do that are kind. But I feel like maybe we should start. I know that sounds bad, like not doing it for the reasons of oh, look at me, I'm so kind, but more so people can see what it does for the other person, what being Christ-like does for the other person. someone told me that they lost their job recently, and I have at the moment hardly any money, and I felt really bad, and I knew that they had a family. I was like, do you want me to send you $50? I would have taken it out of my credit card and sent it to them if they really needed it, but they're like, no, 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 it's okay, relax. So that's an example of something behind the scenes, completely private, but it's just it's missing. Why?
So I think we're living in a more self-oriented world in some ways. Um, I think there's less of a focus on charity, and not just charity, because I mean, a lot of people do donate to charities, but to go out of your way and to help someone, like in the Good Samaritan story, that is actually an enemy. That's not, it's easy to help a friend out, but to go out of your way to help someone that you don't necessarily agree with, or that you didn't perceive as an enemy, like for example, um, helping out a porn star, or helping out, someone that's in need. I mean, I've personally known girls that have worked in the prostitution industry. No, sorry, the stripping industry. Not that I support it whatsoever, but girls from high school, and it's a very bad, twisted industry, and they've got themselves in trouble financially or whatever. And in one instance, it was financially, where this girl had nowhere to go and whatnot. And I don't agree with stripping. I'm not a fan of it. It's something I've never felt comfortable with. I just find it strange as a guy in general. And I went out of my way to help her and help her find a place. And
Sorry.
And it was purely because I sort of knew in the back of my mind that, well, hey, if she asks like why I'm doing this, I can say, well, it's because I'm Christian. I don't care about, like, you do you, but like, I have these values and I'm willing to help because of my faith. And I think that can turn people's lives around, because if someone that you think disagrees with you, or that you think dislikes you, goes out of their way to help you, you sort of go, well, why are they doing that? There's something there. And that's something that I think a lot of Christians need to do, is to go out of their way and actually talk to people that they think are immoral or evil or whatever you want to call it, and actually be genuine with them and respect them as a person. You don't need to agree with their view, but you can still respect them as a person and be their friend or whatever, and help them out if they need it. It doesn't mean it's going to influence your life and make you a bad person. I mean, Jesus associated with prostitutes and thieves, and no one's going to argue that he was a bad person or he was promoting those values. He turned a lot of people onto Christianity and onto his way of teaching based on that alone. There's countless stories in the Bible. It's full of them, of cases like that. And sometimes your biggest enemy can be your greatest friend.
Do you think it's possible that part of that teaching is based? Do you think the reason why there's so much selfishness and so many selfish people today who aren't good Samaritans, who aren't helping enough, is because people always say, look out for you, and that's not a bad teaching. I actually think that there's value in that, but I feel like teaching people that means that don't worry about anyone else, you are the most important thing, and that's not healthy, and that gets perpetuated so much that people might misunderstand it and go, well, I've been with people who you literally have to cry. I mean, in my case, maybe you wouldn't. I'd literally cry and almost have to scream and stamp the floor just to get them to do me a favor, to drive me from point A to point B, because they really don't want to. I mean, like my brother or that kind of stuff. It's like far out. Like, I wanna play the PlayStation. Far out. I don't have a fucking car. Like, help me. Just stuff to that to that level of selfishness. And I can think of a few other examples of different relationships as well. But like, do you know what I mean? It's it's perpetuated in our society to you take care of you. Oh, you feel like you're a woman now, but you're married with 4 kids. It's okay. You got to think of you. Oh, hooray! He's mutilated his body, but now he's a woman. But he thought you think of you. Like, that's the lesson, and that's what people think. And so now what's wrong is praised. Would you say that?
In some ways, but I think there's a happy medium that you can have. And I think that if society practiced it more, it would be a much better society. And that is that, there's a saying that if you fly in an airplane and the instructions, the safety warning that the steward gives out, that she does
That's right.
her thing. When the gas mask comes down, the advice is put the mask on yourself first, and
Yes.
then help your children and those around you. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean just help yourself and you'll be fine and let everyone else suffer. It means, build yourself, develop yourself, build wealth, whatever it is, knowledge, whatever it is, and then go out and with that, share it. Obviously, if there's nothing there to work with for yourself, you can't help anyone. So, it has
I
to
agree
be
with that.
a balance. You have to build yourself first. You have to become, more successful in some ways, or, have more wealth before you can give to other people, before you can help other people. But I think people miss that second part. So, I think it's very easy for people to get caught on this success train and driven to, I just want to succeed, that they lose track on what they already have and what they have to offer. And if you want to, look less philosophically and more on statistics,
Yeah.
the first world has the highest rate of suicides, right?
Yes.
We
Yes, that's
have
true.
the most wealth. We have the most wealth. People that are, that are living in a third world country that are starving to death don't want to kill themselves. Their main priority is providing for their family and making sure their family are looked after. And you look at countries that are rated the happiest, and a lot of them. I'm trying to remember the stat now. I think it was Norway. I could be wrong though, but they were interviewed and they were questioned. Like, why are you so happy? What's what's your principle? And the one thing they found between Western countries like Australia and America, where people are miserable, and this other country, which I'm trying to remember what it was, and I should have brought the statistics up, was that in the West we're focused on acquiring more. The more you have, the happier you'll be. That new car, that new sofa, that new house. Once you get that, you'll be happy, and that can go on forever because it's never enough. So the countries that were the most happy and the most satisfied with their lives were the ones that were focused on giving to others. So, their way of being depression was to actually help someone else. And it actually benefits you in the long run, yourself, because when you buy something, for yourself, it might make you happy for a day or two. But when you help someone in a positive way, whether it's financially or with, morals or
It gives you
whatever it
meaning.
is,
It gives you
it gives
value.
you meaning. Exactly. It gives your life meaning, and it gives you a much more long lasting and realistic, more satisfying form of happiness. It isn't like a
Yes.
dopamine hit. It's true satisfaction. And I think that, if we can shift that perspective, I mean, it's a lot of it's led by marketers. We've always been sold these, these images of, you need this in your life to make you happy. You need that. A lot of it's come from marketing, but the real key is help each other out. And a classic example of that is the third world. They've got nothing and they're so happy because they are constantly helping each other to survive. That's true meaning to life.
I think you're completely correct. I wonder if there's any more to add bullet points. The conspiracies: pedophilia, sexual abuse of nuns, which you touched on. You think conspiracy theories or conspiracies are assisting in what regarding the church?
So not the conspiracies, but just the conspiracy theories, so to speak, because they're pretty factual. We've got enough evidence there, but them not being addressed by the church appropriately and them being taboo subjects to discuss is a major issue. You see in society, because I brought these issues up and people just go quiet. That's something you shouldn't discuss. And the church needs to, like the Catholic Church needs to come out and actually start, throwing their priests under the bus, so to speak. They're doing the wrong thing, because it's only bringing down the rest of the good priests that are there. It's what led to Nazis being coming to power, because everyone was complacent. They saw issues there. Some people didn't agree with what the Nazis were doing, but because it was a big trend and everyone else didn't say anything, no one else challenged them. It went from being a small political party to this huge political party that took over because everyone was too complacent, because it was, there was this image that the Jews were controlling everything and running everything, and people agreed to the extent that it led them down a path of mass destruction. And I see the church.
There are Holocaust deniers who would disagree with you.
I'm sure there are, but there's plenty of evidence out there that supports that. And the Holocaust deniers, their main argument is that it's not as many as people claim.
I think that is true.
Yeah. So regardless,
I'm not saying the Holocaust didn't happen; it did. I'm just saying I think it is like far less than what's claimed. That's probably true.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, for something so powerful to corrupt so many people, because a lot of people in Germany voted them in, supported the movement. There was huge crowds that Hitler had. He had a lot of support, regardless of whether or not he killed 5 or 5 million or 50 million. To allow someone to have that sort of power where they can determine whether or not someone else lives, and for people to support that is an issue, and it shows our own psychology. That there's plenty of there was an interesting experiment done. There's a little bit off topic, but it relates. There was an experiment done based in a prison, and they took students. I think it was 12 in total. They had 6 become fake prisoners, and 6 become the guards to look after the prison. Mm-hmm. And these were completely innocent people. It was chosen at random who would be a prisoner and who would be a guard. And after a week, or it was even less than a week, I believe, the experiment had to be ceased because the people who were acting as guards, because they were doing it together, they became so involved that they actually acted like abusive guards, and they would beat the prisoners who were their own classmates and their own friends.
Wow.
They would beat them.
I mean, not a good experiment, but interesting experiment.
Absolutely. It sort of shows you, it makes you aware of how dark human psychology can be. And, the chances are you would be one of those prisoners, one of those guards that's torturing your fellow classmate, because you're in that, in that headspace where you actually believe you've got that authority. And that gives you an idea also as to how, the Nazi movement grew so fast and was so successful, because it's this tribal mindset, which is still within us, that, well, he's doing it, so it's, and he's not getting in trouble, therefore I can do it. And that just escalates and it grows, and it's a major issue. It's quite scary to think that you could do that.
It is. Guys, you can start asking your questions now, and we'll do our best to answer them. There was one more dot point, but we can probably do it at the same time. The last dot point was what has
Sure.
caused people to lose faith in the church. So whilst we discuss that, we'll also answer questions. My response to that bullet point was what has caused people to lose faith in the church is the false leaders. All of this perpetuation of these people like Joel Osteen and all that kind of thing. These and the televangelists that want more money and who want their own private jets. People see that. People see priests touching inappropriately children, and the whole nun thing and raping nuns and giving their children up for adoption. All of that is what makes people lose faith in Christ. It's the same thing. Even though I'm not a fan of Islam, I can say that I can understand why a Muslim who doesn't do the things that that the terrorist jihadi ones are doing, I could see why they'd be upset, because they'd be like, well, I don't do that. This isn't my religion. They're bad representations of that. They are falsely representing my God. And I would say the same thing. I would say that the people asking for all this money, the people who are angry at like homosexual people for being gay and all that kind of stuff, I would say, well, that's not representing the true love of Christ. And it's because of these individuals that people are losing faith. That is my answer to that bullet point. What is your answer to that bullet point while I start finding questions?
So pretty similar. I think it's a combination
Yeah.
of the hypocrisy within the church, as well as a lack of integrity. And when you put someone, I mean, also like within the Catholic Church and a lot of churches, when you put someone on such a high pedestal, it's only a matter of time before they fall from that. And when that happens, it does create a larger effect. I mean, I have a lot of respect for priests. I have a lot of respect for pastors and, you know, people that lead churches. But I think it's important to realize that they are still humans. But on the other side, part of their role as a leader of a church, just like if they're leading a business, if there's something going on within your church or your business, whatever it may be, that's wrong and that you know is wrong, that's illegal, to be complacent and not call it out is first, like it ruins it for everyone else. People cannot stand that, and it's a major issue. And I think that's a combination of those things have left, and a lot of it comes from also the Catholic Church, but it makes Christianity as a whole look bad, and it drives people away. And I think that's why we've seen such a mass, you know, evacuation of the churches, so to speak. Yeah, people have lost faith.
It's sad. So someone just asked me a question, me specifically. Nebula Protostar, the number of deaths is a fundamental aspect of Holocaust denial. I don't deny, so the term Holocaust denial means to deny the Holocaust in its entirety. I do not do that. So that technically makes you a Holocaust denier, in my opinion. So that's just your opinion, because I wouldn't agree with that. I do think there was a Holocaust. I do think the Nazis treated the Jews horribly. I do think the Jews, I've seen footage of them being thrown from, there were bones and they were thrown into a pit. So yeah, just because I question the number just means I'm a critical thinker, and I don't believe the narrative that history has laid out for us, because I do question things, and I do think if that makes me a partial Holocaust denier, then okay. But yeah, that's my answer to that. Let's have a look. Any good questions? I'm going up now. I did ask people to leave them to the end, but people still ask them throughout. And so the reason I ask people to write questions towards the end is because I can't go up. I can't put your question on when we're in the middle of an in-depth discussion. So people want to rewrite one of their questions. That's great. That's for you.
Time cop, I think. I'd say, yeah, I think I'd say time cop. But that's a good a good reference back to last week's interview.
I don't remember referring to Muslims praying against a wall, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to expand on. I don't recall saying that. Obviously I did, but I just mean I think what I meant was that different religions have ritualistic activities. For example, if you're a Catholic, you have the rosary beads and you say the Hail Marys. If you are a Hindu, you have to wear a turban as part of a ritual daily custom. So with Islam, they have to pray 5 times a day against a wall. I think it's east. So I think that's all I meant by that. It wasn't really.
They have to face towards Mecca, which
Mecca.
I don't know where.
That's right. Yeah.
Where
so
it
there's
is
not
from
really
Australia, but they know.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's all that meant. That wasn't anything particularly. What is this one? If the night vision dwarf is not addresses, is Dia really Christian? That's not even worded grammatically correctly, so I don't know. I do know that I made a video against Quaden Bales, but Quaden Bales' mother. I made a video against the mother trying to profit from. Does anyone have any questions relevant to tonight's discussion? Yeah. So Quaden Bales is a cute little boy of Aboriginal descent, and he was recently bullied by kids in his class, and he was crying, and he said, "I want to kill myself." But in the video, what's not mentioned is that he was actually bullying the kids first. And then he was saying anti-white statements, which isn't his fault. He gets these anti-white. He's trained to hate white people from his mother. And apparently, people are saying that one idiot in the live stream is saying that I've spoken out against him at some capacity. I haven't. I said in the video it was extremely loving. I said how adorable the little boy was, that I found him really cute. It was the mother. That I spoke out against. You can watch my video. I'm not lying. It's all there. Yeah. So even the thumbnail shows that I'm against the mother. But there's a whole campaign. So let's find relevant top questions, shall we? Let me just go back down and see if there's anything.
For anyone's wondering, my dog just popped in, so that's why my hand's moving down here just to pat him.
That's right. There's a dog barking in my background too, so I'm like thinking people can hear that.
The good thing is he's quiet at least. It's a Labrador cross Kelpie.
Oh, so they're just being silly. Are you saying that this is that he has excellent night vision? I don't think he has a night vision. Well, okay, good. Benjamin Molesworth, one of my moderators, who's actually disappeared lately. I actually made someone else a moderator because he's never in my chats anymore. Church leadership doing everything in church and laity just coming to watch is teaching laity. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word right. That a personal relationship with Christ is only necessary for the leadership discuss. I don't really know what that means. He's actually using terms that I don't understand. So maybe that's obviously that question is for you, but go ahead, discuss that. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure the point of that question. I'm just bringing it back now.
Yeah, can you write it a bit differently, Benjamin?
Is teaching laity that a personal relationship with Christ is only necessary for leadership? So I wouldn't say that a personal relationship with Christ is necessary with to be in leadership. I think it's a lot more than that. Knowledge, you have to have a personal relationship with Christ, but you also need to have a vast knowledge of the Bible and the teachings of Christ, which you don't just get from having a relationship there. So I'm guessing that's what the question was, but if I've misread it, feel free to let me know.
Nebula Protostar, do you believe in a? Yes, you did ask this question earlier, but I couldn't answer it. I need the questions towards the end. Do you believe in a literal return of Jesus, or will there be a prophet like Jesus figure emerge? No, I think it'll be the literal Jesus Christ back. What about yourself?
I believe so as well. I mean, that's what it says in the Bible.
Yes.
Yeah, it says that Jesus will return. So who knows what he'll look like? We don't know, but
have a beard.
Yeah, that's what's taught. Potentially, I mean, he could be clean shaven. You never know.
But that's true. He might have a buzz cut.
Look, yeah, who knows? Mohawk. No, I doubt that, but you never know.
You
It'd be
never know.
quite interesting to imagine, but yeah, I definitely believe that when the rapture comes, so to speak, it will be it's told that Jesus will return and actually rescue the his followers. So yeah, that's absolutely the case.
Rise of Catholicism in the West because of all the degeneracy. I believe actually that part of the degeneracy that we have today is because of the Catholic institution, because they've allowed liberalism and society to get in their ear. I know that wasn't your question, but that's part, I think, of the degeneracy. What about yourself?
I hear there's a resurgence back to Catholicism, and that happens, every now and then. You'll see you'll see trends. The pendulum will swing. But I think it's only a matter of time if the church doesn't change its ways before it swings back, because I think people will realize why we saw people leave the church in the first place, because of that hypocrisy and issues within it. So there could be a large group that are coming back into the church right now and thinking that Catholicism is the way. But I think it's a matter of time before they're actually disenfranchised and leave themselves if there's no change for it. Socks with shorts or not? Depends. I think ankle socks look great. Not a big fan of your really high socks with shorts. But I think yeah, socks yes, because who wants stinky feet? But keep them as either ankles or those no-show socks. That's just my personal style. But there's people out there that can rock the the half calf high socks. So just depends on the tan, I think, to a certain extent.
Please address women not speaking in the church. The Bible says women are not to speak in the church in the level of the priesthood, like in the level of being a minister. But that doesn't mean that a woman can't lead or plant the seed. So I do think if a woman runs a Sunday school class, or if a woman has a YouTube channel, or if a woman hands out tracts, I think that there are distinctions to be made. If a woman is running an entire ministry, maybe that is against the Bible, but there are other ways that a woman can express her faith, like running a Sunday school class, like running a magazine about the Lord, like planting the seed by talking to a friend. I think that's still all okay. I think God just means because the man is the head of the house, that the woman can't necessarily lead. I still think a woman could do a ministry, but it would need to be under her husband or under a man at some level, or she would need to speak second, or she could speak first. It doesn't matter when, but it'd have to be a particular sequence of authority there. So, what do you think, Stephen?
I completely agree with women being able to lead in the church. Maybe not as a priest or a pastor, but
It should be okay. There's a distinction. I just don't know what it is. Yeah.
well, I think that women need leaders as well, and sometimes they're not going to find it in men, because men and women have different issues. Women can definitely find leadership qualities in men and find things they
For sure.
respect, but to lead women, I think you need a woman to lead women on certain levels. I mean, to have a man lead the church is obviously leading both sexes, but in terms of a more personal level, I think that women need female leaders within the church as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So
I do agree with that.
I think it's great. In terms of
sorry, go.
Next one.
Go. No, continue.
I was going to say, I know there's some churches that don't actually allow women to have any say in the church. So I wasn't sure if she was addressing that as well, and that I don't agree with. I think that there should be a say for women in the church as well.
For sure. Philip Cunningham, as I have Spanish ancestry, who did your family fight for during the Spanish Civil War? I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know. I don't know, but yeah. That'd be interesting. I'll find out. That's something I'd like to know. Can we please see the dog? I really love Kelpie Lab Cross. Is that what your dog
Hang on.
is?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's lying down. Hang on, let's see if we can.
Oh, let me move
There he
this.
is. There he is.
Ah, isn't he a darling?
He's all reversed. Hang on.
I have a Kelpie. Oh, I don't have a
There we
Kelpie,
go.
but I've been babysitting a Kelpie for the longest time as well. We call him Trump.
They're very active dogs. They he's an interesting mix because labs are usually a bit more placid and very family friendly, and Kelpie's a working dog and can just run all day. So it's quite a good combination. I think it's a pretty well balanced dog.
Yeah, no, this Kelpie that I sometimes take for walks is a nut. Like you have to throw the ball 1,000 times just to get him tired. It's really annoying. And I'm a
Yeah,
cat person by nature.
I think this one's a bit more lab. Oh, here we go. He's looking up more now. Let's see if we can get him in.
Hi,
He's a bit more of a
beautiful.
lab. He's
What's
quite
his
big,
name?
like a chocolate lab. Bear. Big teddy
Peter?
bear. No, bear.
Bear. Cute
Bear.
as.
Yep. So yeah, he loves going, throwing the ball and catching it, but he gets tired after a bit.
Yeah.
So I think he's more lab.
Get Dia to show the upload that Dusty Bogan did picking on the African community. Let's hear Stephen's thoughts on whether or not that retains question values. Does that last part make sense? Let's hear Stephen's thoughts on whether or not that retains question values.
I see a point.
Okay,
so yeah,
go ahead.
I can see.
I haven't seen the video, so I can't comment.
I haven't seen the video either, so I'd actually like to see it. Yeah, I'd be very interested to see it. I can't imagine that Ben will be attacking the African community. Dusty,
Dusty
but
adopts black people and he teaches them about Christ, and he has Aboriginal people that we met them together. We were together when we met these Aboriginal black kids from his church. Like, I can't imagine Dusty saying anything negative against black people, and even if he did, it's probably based on a newspaper article or on a statistic, and so it's probably just factually accurate, and so that cannot be mixed with being racist.
Yeah. But look, I'm open to see the video if
Sure.
someone can find it. If she can find it, means she said that that's she's seen it. So yeah, I'm more happy to watch it and change my opinion if that's the case. But yeah, I can't imagine that. So.
Well, there are no more genuinely good questions.
A few trolls in the comments.
Yeah, I don't know where they've shown up from. I don't mind trolls, but people, I don't mind that the lefties trolling me. That's fine. What bothers me is people who claim that they are right wing or right leaning being having no tact or kinder approach in how they deal with me, because I always respond with God bless, kiss kiss. Like, I try really hard to be polite, but it's okay. You expect better from the people who claim to be on your side. For Steve, are man buns ethical? I don't know.
Look, I think for religious reasons, it was a bit of a trend, but look, I'm not a fan of them. Some guys can pull it off, but no, not a fan. Personally, wouldn't work on me.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't suggest it to someone else either.
Yeah.
Get a nice clean haircut and you're good to go.
Nice clean haircut. This person's going to email you because apparently I didn't ask their question, even though I just did on camera several times. But okay. So yeah, email him or whatever. Actually, you don't need to email him. I mean, you can email him, but you can get all that information on his channel. So if you want to communicate with Stephen, and everyone, if you want to communicate with Stephen, please check out his new channel. He's launching his first video on Saturday at around noon. So that's exciting. I will be sharing the crap out of it because I think men really do need help with fashion. Thank you so much for coming on my channel and Actually, this is
My
a good
pleasure.
comment. Philip is sometimes a little bit nasty to me at times, but I agree with this comment. And that
I
is
think
true.
so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And people, some claim that I'm
Definitely.
assisting with that. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I do agree with that comment overall collectively. Yeah, so email. If you guys want to email Stephen, you do that through his channel in the about section. Have you done all that? Have you set all that up? Or do you still
I've got
need
that
help?
on my page, but if you need it, so it's dapperdenaustralia@gmail.com.
Lovely.
And I've also got an Instagram, which is @dapperdenaustralia. And then also a Telegram, which is the Dapper Den.
That's
So you can find me
awesome.
on different places, and there'll be a Twitter coming up very soon.
Yay, that's exciting. And you should also do an Instagram. That'll probably benefit you
Yeah, I do.
more.
I've got an Instagram. It's
Oh, it's all there. Yeah,
@DapperDen
you said it.
Australia.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, it's all
And
there.
okay, guys. So my guest next week is still unconfirmed, but Bering and I have been emailing back and forth, and Bering said to me in the email, just tell me the day and I'll be there. So I don't know whether that's him confirming with me up front, so he doesn't have to sort of go between emails because he gets so many. But I've been re-emailing him like once a week or so to be like, is the 22nd, is that confirmed? But he hasn't confirmed. So if I don't get Bering for next week, I'm going to have Father Chris Yates. He is from the Catholic Apostolic Church, and I'm going to ask him a series of questions. So it'll still be super interesting. It'll still be a super fun. Father Yates is really, really fun, loving guy. A very untraditional type of Catholic because he's married with children and stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, so I'm not sure if I have Bering next week. I hope I do, but I might not. But anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed today's discussion. It went for longer than I expected it to because um, we did touch on so much. We touched on your fashion, we touched on your channel, then we did the movement and all the indiscrepancies there, and then indiscrepancies in the church and the Catholic Church and the Christian Church in general. So I feel like it's been a really good discussion, and then we answered as many people's questions as possible. So I hope everyone was relatively happy and was entertained. Thanks for coming on, Stephen. You're such a kind person, and I really appreciate it. And apparently, we're the new it couple, according to Dusty, which is fun.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been
No,
awesome.
I'm so pleased. You're like one of my favorite people in my Telegram chats. You always have so much knowledge. Like the knowledge you have about it's not knowledge what you have. You have knowledge, but what you have is wisdom. That's lacking. Like people can be smart, like, I can be smart with certain things. I'm a complete idiot with some things, but I can be completely smart with some things but lack wisdom in it. You have wisdom, and that's why I like the debates that occur in our Telegram chat group. It's really fun. It's good.
I'm glad. Yeah, I think I've I think it comes from experience.
And
You go
Christ.
through a bit in life and you learn from it.
Mm,
So yeah,
exactly.
I'm glad you think
All
so.
right. Yeah. All
All
right,
right.
guys. Well, we're gonna let you all go now. I have work tomorrow, so see you later, all. And
Yeah.
yes, I'm just gonna end the broadcast now. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. End broadcast.